Hi, this is Joanne May, and today I'm going to talk to you about copying and reducing the size of your art, especially if you're using gold leaf or gold metal leaf. What you see here is an actual document and transitioning to a copied document. And you can see there's quite a bit of difference. Of course, the photography is a little different, the lighting is a little different, but the shininess of the gold leaf on the first document is very difficult to reproduce if you're just having it printed or photographed and printed or using a copy machine. So I went through a lot of stages in trying to figure out what the best route would be to go once I had this artwork finished. And I would like to just share what I learned with you. It was kind of a steep learning curve at first because I had so many different options. I had to investigate what stores were in the area that would do these different types of printings, and then what the costs were for each of the different processes. So as I'm showing you here the first stage of painting over a copy, just where the gold will be, I will explain the process that I went through. And there were a couple of different good options. The first was to find a shop in our area that would do Gicleé printing. Everything that I read, everything that I had talked with artists about, all came to the same conclusion that the best color, the best reproduction would be a Gicleé print, spelled Giclee. That type of printing requires the proper equipment. It comes out looking very close to the original art. And so I was so hopeful that once I found a shop that would do Gicleé printing that I could just take my document in, have it printed, and that gold would just shine like the original. I was very wrong about that. As soon as the shop owner saw the gold, he said, well, everything will come out beautifully except the gold. You will not be able to get the shininess on the gold. So I had him go ahead and do one copy. I paid for a setup fee and for the one copy, and it was, in our area, it was about $75 to have him do that. It was worth it to me just so that I would know something about it for future projects. And as I was able to have him do that, I picked up the original and then compared it with the print. I was delighted with the scroll work around the letter. I was delighted with the calligraphy. It all looked so beautiful. But I was not happy at all with the gold. So I thought, well, I may just have to do another gold leaf over the top of it, which I could have done. And then it occurred to me that it might be just as beautiful to use some of this Finetec gold paint. And that's what you see me doing here. The second step in my process was to decide how to reduce the size. And when I went back to the shop, it was going to cost between $5 and $10 per sheet at an 8x10 size or less. Any size smaller than 8x10 would be the same cost. So I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, I can take the original Gicleé file, which was part of that original fee that I paid, and just take it to a Staples printer. And I called them to make sure that I could use watercolor paper, which is 140 pound. I thought maybe the paper would be too heavy. Sure enough, the copiers will copy up to 140 pound paper. So I went in, didn't realize I had to do a setup for the 8x10 size because my Gicleé file was a little bit larger than that. So it reduced down too much when I did the reduction, and it didn't work, but fortunately I hadn't wasted a sheet of watercolor paper. I had just done a trial on a piece of copy paper. So I went home, reworked the sizing to get it to fit exactly on the size of paper, which I was using a quarter sheet of watercolor paper, which is 11 by 15. I wanted something close to an 8x10, but I wanted it to be just a little bit larger than that. So I played around on my computer in the reduction mode of print preview. Really, that's what I was using. It's nothing that most computers won't have. It's a pretty simple program to use. There are several edit buttons on the preview mode, and I was able to do two things. I reduced the 8 by 10 size, the 11 by 15 size down to about an 8.5 by 11, and then I took two versions of it and flipped them sideways so that I could do two smaller ones on an 11 by 15 sheet, and that's what you see me working on here. This is approximately 5.5 by 7.5, so it's actually a really nice size for putting into a 5 by 7 frame. I made it a little smaller. You see how much of a margin there is around this sheet, so it will fit into a 5 by 7 frame, trimming it once it's all completed. So I really liked the Finetec Gold. There are, you see the gold palette that I have, that I'm using. The color that I liked the best is called Gold Pearl, but really any of those colors will shine very nicely. I did one paint over, and I thought I was completely finished. While it was still wet, it looked beautiful. I let it dry overnight, came back, and sure enough, I could see little areas where it wasn't coated well enough. So I learned that the thinner watercolor painting process didn't work so well. I had to go back over a big area of it with a little bit thicker paint. So in a different copy, you're seeing one that I was able to do just one shot, and you see me going over and over some of these lines to make sure that it's coated completely. But in a different copy that I was using, I had to put two coats. First coat dried, went back and did the second coat. Another thing that I discovered by doing this is that at Staples, I don't want to take business away from good printers, and I'm a believer in Gicleé printing. For sure, if you have an original work of art that doesn't include gold leaf, but the gold just won't show up very well. So when I was at Staples, I had a lot of help because I'm not a good figuring things out with a copy. Technical things are tricky for me. So I fortunately came upon a really helpful employee at the store, and they helped me make sure that the paper was right side up the way it needed to go into the machine. And I did a sample on a blank piece of paper. Each one of the prints that I did in color and as a custom setup were 58 cents. So on the double sheet, when I did these two smaller sizes, I was able to get two prints for 58 cents. Now that doesn't include, of course, that I had to bring my own watercolor paper in, but if you are able to buy watercolor paper in the large sheets, which are 22 by 30 inches, then you just divide the sheets into 4 parts, and that's how you get your 11 by 15 size. And in the long run, I figured it to be about $1 for each 11 by 15 size. So comparing to between $5 and $10 for a Gicleé print, I am very happy with the quality of what the Staples printers were able to do. There may be other printers. I know that some of the art stores, Gicleé, for example, does have printing services, but only in certain stores, and the one that's closest to me is something like an hour-and-a-half drive away. So this Staples version is a little bit lighter. It isn't quite as defined, but it certainly is sufficient for the purposes that I want to use these for, which will be gifts for people, and I'm thinking that they probably will enjoy seeing them over and over again in a frame. So that's my purpose for doing this. As you're seeing me, I'm a little bit sped up here. I didn't want to speed it up too much because I wanted to make sure that you saw how much detail work it takes to get a really good coating of the gold. And some of the points were a little tricky. I had to have a very fine pointed brush to be able to get into the corners. But I did the 2 A's, and then I also came back, you'll see in just a moment, I came back to the large A where there are seed pods in the design around the A, and I made those also in gold. The one thing that I did not do, on the original document I did calligraphy with gold gold ink on certain words in the document, and I didn't try to go back with gold leaf with a brush. That would have made a mess. So I just left those. At the end you should be able to see a closer look at how those letters look just in the printed document rather than painted over with the gold. So now I'll just let you watch the rest of the process. Not too much left to go here. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe if you're interested in more either calligraphy or watercolor. Thanks for watching.